Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Here Be Dragons. I am your host, Stephen Stark. With me, as always, is my hetero life mate, internet husband, John. And we are joined this week by artist and animator extraordinaire and good friend of the channel, Sanrixian, aka Cyborg Rixian. Hi, Sanri.
Hi, guys. How are you doing? John was just insulting me pre-stream, so we're off to a great start.
It wasn't that bad.
It was not at all. He was just teasing me, and I did not get it.
Can't let an opportunity to make John squirm.
Yeah.
Can't let that pass.
And now nobody has context now. Everybody's like, John, what did you say to her?
Well, John, what did you say? No, John is very lawful and orderly, while I'm more chaotic in my background. So, we were just discussing that, and this movie that we're going to be talking about is pretty chaotic in the background. So, look, tying it together for you, Stephen. Is
it chaotic or is it extremely orderly?
That's a good point.
There is so much going on in this film. So, yes, we're talking today about Ghost in the Shell, the 1995 anime. Where, full disclosure, I am not Japanese. I do not speak Japanese. I will do my best with the Japanese pronunciations when they come up. Don't at me. Okay?
I'm not even sure that I remember most of the characters' names. So, I'm pulling up a list just so I can semi get it right.
That's probably the worst idea.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm going to go on the record starting off here by saying that I have known about this film pretty much ever since it came out, and it was sitting on the shelf of my nearby video store, and yet somehow I have managed to only just have seen it for the first time in the past couple weeks, which is insane. But I actually wanted to see it when the live action remake came out a couple of years ago, but by that point, I had read the reviews of the Blu-ray and stuff. It said that it was okay, but not great. So I was waiting for a really nice remaster, and they finally released it just a couple weeks ago. So now I've watched it, and it's phenomenal.
Yeah. So your first interaction with this film was really just 2 weeks ago or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I remember you sent me a message right after you watched it, because you said, I just finished Ghost in the Shell, and I was like, well, what'd you think? And your message was something along the lines of, I think this is one of the greatest science fiction films ever made.
Yeah.
Which, from somebody who appreciates sci-fi, you also have a great appreciation for sci-fi. Maybe not the exact same types, but we both do. That's very high praise coming from you.
Yeah, I was amazed at the economy of it all, because it's a pretty short film, but it packs so much into it, and versus I don't want to turn this into a original version versus live action, but what I remember of that film was a lot of sort of flash and not a lot of substance to hold on to. I don't really remember much about it, but this film, instantly I was just like, holy crap, this is amazing.
Yeah. So, Sanri, what was your first interaction with this film like?
Oh, man. Well, back when I was a wee lass, we had these things called Blockbuster videos and Hollywood videos where you could rent films. And for a while, my mom would just rent me whatever anime she found and was like, oh, this is a cartoon. My daughter will like this, and would bring it home for me to watch. And that's how I got to see Princess Mononoke for the first time. That's how I got to see it. Akira, and that's also how I saw this film. So probably when I was around 10 or 11, way too young to be watching this, I watched it. Yeah. And it really messed with my mind, and I watched it again in college when we watched through basically animated classics, what we considered really, really good animation in my animation class in college, and we watched that and Akira back to back. So that was my second time seeing it, and then I just watched it again this week to catch up for the stream. But yeah, it's a beautiful freaking film. I almost had to rewatch it again within the span of this week to rewatch it for the film because I was getting so lost looking at all the animation details in the background. I wasn't even reading the subtitles. Lots of rewinding for me.
Yeah, and so you came to it as a wee bab, really, somebody too young to be watching it. Did it blow your mind the first time you watched it? Would it measure up to something you would like Princess Mononoke or what have you? How does 11-year-old Sanrixian rank it?
I would say I didn't like it as much as I like Princess Mononoke, just because there's not animals in Ghost in the Shell, and little me would be like, oh, which one has the animals? Because that's how we're going to determine which is a better film. But like it resonated with me in a different way where I think it was like really scary to me. So things like growing up later in my life, Minority Report and AI became increasingly terrifying because I had seen this movie so young, I think. And I haven't seen the live action one. I refuse to see it. Sorry, John. I don't care. I don't like ScarJo that much, at least not enough to make me watch a film. But yeah, that was her. I am right in that, right?
Yeah, whereas in my case, I probably went to go see it because of ScarJo. But yeah, it's funny, Sanri, you talk about, the fact that, you talk about seeing it in Blockbuster and stuff. Because, same here, except I think I've told Steven this. I mentioned this yesterday. I'm pretty sure my reaction was, seeing it in the store, looking at the cover and being like, my parents aren't going to let me rent that.
I got away with renting a lot of animated films I should not have been allowed to rent because my mom would just go and pick it up. Like even Princess Mononoke is like terrifying if you think about it. But for me, I think that's why I have like this love of like demons and myths and demonology and stuff. Like you can trace Sanrixian like themes, if you will, like back through the animes that I watched as a kid or the shows that I watched as a kid. It's kind of telling, really. But this film, the backgrounds in it, being that right now Archer's airing, and I did a lot of the season 11 backgrounds. Like first 2 episodes, both intro shots were me, yeah, girl, right here, and 3, and the outros, I think, for all of them. But yeah, like watching the backgrounds in this film, they're just works of art. Just the entire movie is just gorgeous. And I think this is when they started doing digital compositing. I know that Disney had already done like some 3D stuff by now, by 95. Like they had 3D stuff in Little Mermaid. That's the earliest one that I remember. But yeah, it's mind-boggling because most of this was 2D hand-drawn animation, especially like the scenes with her like rising up to the top in the ocean. What's her name?
Motoko Kusanagi.
I was going to say, thank you. It's going to take me a second to draw that.
Okay, real talk. That character is one of my favorite characters in all of anime history. And I'll talk about why as we go on. But yeah, Major Motoko Kusanagi.
Yeah. She's incredible. She's
really I do not embarrassing myself. I'll just call her Major.
Yeah.
For the duration.
Kusanagi, if you can say that, is a little bit easier. But I don't even think they say her first name until like the last 5-10 minutes of the film.
Maybe. And she even has a weird sort of, I don't know. So I'm going to talk about when I first saw this film.
Yeah.
It was probably 1996. I know because I was still dating my first wife. Like I don't even know if we were engaged yet at that point. And I saw this film on VHS and it blew my mind, but and I probably watched it 3 times within a month just because I kept something was gnawing at me going like, what is this trying to tell me? Because something is going on here. And the first time I watched that, I think I was like trying to connect with what Motoko, of what the story was saying about Kusanagi.
Mm-hmm.
The second time I was like, what is this film saying about me? And then the third time I watched it, I feel like, what is this film saying about us as humans? And it's one that really does warrant revisiting it every once in a while because I probably have seen it 10 times and then I watched it again this week and I don't know if I just am remembering things or if I'm having these thoughts for the first time, but I don't know. This thing blows my mind consistently. Its writing is incredible. It really is. And that is achieved not just through the dialogue, but also the animation.
John, have you seen Akira?
I haven't, which of
Okay.
course I have just found out recently that it's being released also in 4K in December, so I will be seeing it shortly.
Okay, that's another one. Like I said when we were chatting before the stream, like I've seen that movie probably 12 times, and only about the 5th or 6th time did it finally start making sense to me. But something I put together today, or when I was watching the movie earlier, Ghost in the Shell, is the vocalizations are very similar in Ghost in the Shell than they are to Akira. And I was like, wait, what film am I watching again? Did I pick the right one? Just like double checking myself. Yeah.
I mean, Cedric.
It is an Akira level.
Yeah,
for sure.
Cedric is basically agreeing with everything you're saying right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely think there's some overlap. Just like in that creepy Akira music, like Ashida, Ashida, and it's like ramping up with the crazy vocals, and you're like, oh god, what's going on? It's just this, I would say, like the really horror end of sci-fi, if you will. At least for me, it was very spooky for me.
And speaking of music, like the main theme of this film, the first time I watched it, I was like, that music's a little odd, a little weird, and then I found that it keeps like sticking in my head. And
it's a real earworm, isn't it?
Yeah, and when I went back to watch it again, like I was really into it, and that. And the way it's used in that whole opening credit sequence with, it's beautiful.
Yeah. What I really appreciate about this film and also Akira and some of the 90s anime is they really take the time for those like long shots that they do in film, which I feel like is kind of like missing from current anime movies that I've watched. But I don't know if it's a stylistic thing or what, but
I think it is a stylistic thing. And Sanri, I mean, I did research for this film. This is probably something, as I say it, you will be like, yep. There is a difference between the way Western comic books are drawn and Eastern manga is drawn. Whereas a lot of panels in Western comic books are very action-y. They show a person doing something. Whereas a lot of manga panels are more like showing a person being somewhere, occupying a space, not necessarily doing being action oriented. And a lot of this film, there's a sequence in the middle of it where we wander through Neo Tokyo or whatever city it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very Hong Kong looking type city, and you can see a lot of multiculturalism within the city. It's an international city, the way Tokyo would be, or Hong Kong. But like, there's no action. And
it's very still, I think, is what you're trying to grab onto. And that's something that, I mean, like, I've had that pointed out to me multiple times during my education, but it is also like one of the things that I have noticed, like, a perfect example of an establishing shot that we like use in comics world to like help other people understand what an establishing shot is. We're like, okay, the first panel is Naruto and it's just like the village, like the Leaf Village. And that's what it is. That's an establishing shot. Kind of like shows you the environment, doesn't focus on the characters or the humans as much. It's more of the surround, because they basically, I would say, philosophically, in Eastern culture, there's less of a focus on the self and more of a focus on the community and the environment. And like, there's more of an awareness on how you are in your environment than there is in Western media and Western thinking, I think. Which is why I focused on Eastern stuff for my art history degree. I did Zen Buddhism and basically all non-white art because I was sick of being forced to learn about the same 7 painters in the Renaissance. But yeah, long story short, I think you're really latching on to something there. The full beauty of a lot of these high-end productions, like we think about Disney, we think about the Japanese Disney,
Studio Ghibli.
Yeah, Studio Ghibli or Miyazaki. We think about that, and we just think of this like beautiful high level of production with everything filled out. But even if you go and look at Disney, it's still focused on sing-alongs and the characters more than it is the environments and the stories and like the worlds.
Yeah, I can't sing along with the songs in this film.
No, you can't. You can try.
Yeah, but I couldn't quite get there.
Hashira. Oh, yeah, I can only do Akira.
But that being said, John, you feel free to chime in anytime, but the music in this really does set that tone of like putting you on edge, and of being something that is both familiar and strange at the same time.
Yeah, and I do want to make a quick point, because it wouldn't be me if I wasn't making a nerdy sort of trivia point about the music. In actually the American the English dubbed version of this film, as well as the more recent digital versions of the Japanese, they've replaced the end credit music with a different song. I guess it's not different for people who grew up on the English language version, but the original Japanese version is supposed to have a third version of that chant that's used in the beginning and the middle of the film. And it's sad to say it's not present as it should be on the new 4K release. I'm a bit bummed about that. So when I watched the film today, I actually brought up the soundtrack, which is on Amazon Music. And when the end hit, I played that instead at just the right moment. So I had the correct ending. So yeah, that's my nerdy little music bit for
DIY.
Thank you. Physical media.
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely love that music element. It's almost kind of like a character in the story, the way it is in Akira, where you really feel like you're in the environment and you're really like there because of how good the soundtrack is. So I'm with you on this one, John. It's a great soundtrack. I don't know much about soundtracks, but I trust your opinion.
Yeah, well, I and the reason why I pointed that out is because I do think it's very important sort of thematically, because that chant plays in the beginning as we're seeing her birth, and then that middle section of the film, which is, you know, her sort of contemplating and going through the city, and then the end of the film has her rebirth. So I think it's really important that that music is there in its proper place. So that's why I'm going to point my finger at the studio for messing that one up.
Yeah. I've only heard it with the chant at the end. I don't know what it would be like to have something different. So when you watched it, did you watch it in Japanese or English dub?
Japanese.
Thank you. Okay. Because you have to watch it in Japanese at least once if you haven't.
I have seen both versions. The real talk, the first one I watched was the English dub. It was the VHS that was handed to me. I watched it, and I really did enjoy it. But like, the Japanese voice actors are better. You know, they're not reading lines off a page, and I feel like a lot of the American voice actors are. You know, they're doing their best, but. There are times where I feel like the voice acting doesn't quite make it up to scratch of the English. So I prefer the Japanese, but I have seen both versions. And sometimes the English is just easier because you don't have to, you can look at the beautiful things on screen instead of reading what's on the bottom, you know, especially once you know the film already.
Yeah, two things. One, I'll be honest, Stephen, as far as subtitles go, I've always... and I can appreciate the people who don't want to be reading the entire movie, but for me personally, every time that I've watched a subtitled film, it's that way for about 5 minutes, and then it's almost like I'm instinctively reading the subtitle while also seeing the visual. So that's kind of how it is for me. But also, I watched this film on my first viewing in the Japanese version. Then I went to watch the dubbed version. I thought it was atrocious. Especially the Major's voice. I don't want to, you know, go too far insulting anybody. I'm sure, you know, she tried her best, but it does read, it does sound like somebody reading just stilted off a piece of paper. And
yeah, I will say this, Bato's voice actor is great. In the English dub, he is great.
I can't remember if I've seen the English dub or not. I assume when I was a kid, I probably saw it.
I mean, there's no point to going back to it. You know, once you kind of know the story, I feel like the voice actors, the Japanese voice actors, just deliver with more emotion. Like, the Major comes off kind of emotionless in the English dub, but she seems to be more emotive in the Japanese dub, which is an important thing when you're talking about is she who and what is she? Because that's really like, I guess we can get kind of more into the meat of the film now. Like, this is an examination about consciousness, individuality, and what it means to be a human in an ever-evolving technological world. And it's incredible in the questions that it asks, but doesn't necessarily give you an answer to. So,
I mean, no.
right.
Like, no, not really. It's one of those where, and definitely for me, the first time I watched it, I did not get it at all. Again, probably because I was however old, a child, a wee lass. But even watching it at 20, I was like, huh. Also because I probably watched it at like 8 a.m, that probably had a factor into it. So I was not fully conscious. But even now, I'm like, okay, I kind of understand what they're saying. But do I really? So I can't wait to hear what you guys think about what this film means. Like, what's the message? Like, if you had to boil it down to a paragraph.
Ooh, what is the message? Okay, so it's been a long time since I studied philosophy, but Descartes did say, I think, therefore I am. And that is a central idea for this whole thing. Kusanagi is, in theory, a person. She was a woman who was injured and had her, whatever was left of her brain, put into a cyborg body. She is a human brain in a robot body, or at least
supposedly.
Right, supposedly. And how much of her brain, we don't really even know. But like, first of all, that's what I want. I want to be a brain in a robot body. I've said it many times before. But then the question begins to arise, and she struggles with this whole film. Who and what is she? Is she a human being? And she doesn't know the answer to that. And the puppet master assures her that she is not. But Bateau, throughout the entire thing, treats her absolutely like she is. Mm-hmm. So and I don't even know if she knows, even by the end of the film, if she has an answer for that. But she knows even if she's not human, she has to be something because she thinks, therefore she is. But the same could be said of the puppet master, who clearly is not of like human origin, so to speak.
Yeah, the puppet master is essentially the collective internet mind hive consciousness taking form, from what I understand. What do you guys think? Or John, what would you say is the message? Because Stephen, I love your take. I just want to get John's take as well.
The message, I was just starting to grasp what actually occurred in the film. As far as the message, I mean, while it does have something to say about the nature of what is human, and I feel like this is something that's been latched on by many sci-fi properties, obviously, and this film itself probably took some things from stuff like Blade Runner. And then it's carried forward in like Battlestar Galactica, and especially I think of in Battlestar when you get into stuff of examining the humanity of the Cylons who aren't actually human themselves, but we're identifying, like key human properties in them. And that's what this deals with, where you got your main character who maybe she might have a human brain, but if so, that's still the only part of her that's really human, and maybe that part isn't even. So by bringing up the puppet master talking about his own humanity, how can we object to that when our main character, who we're rooting for, who we're sympathizing with, may not be human herself?
Right.
And yeah, it's just, yeah, I don't know if that's a message or just observations, but yeah, I clearly do still need to see it a couple more times. I feel like 2 probably isn't enough.
It's very deep. There's a lot going on.
There is a lot going on. I mean, and so Sanri, what do you think the message is then?
I don't know. Be nice to the freaking puppet guy. I don't like it for me. Okay, like feel like I have a better grasp on it than I do. I feel like I have a better grasp on this than I previously did, at least. I feel like the message is yes. Like what it is to be human is something that we really haven't figured out, to simplify it down to like the most basic thing. But for me personally, I think to be human is to live and to die. So, like the cyborg thing, like I'm all for you having your own cyborg body, Steven, but I'm good with just going out whenever I go out. Like,
okay, like I don't want to live forever, but I do want to live without back pain, feet pain,
okay.
trouble, like, yeah.
If that's an option, then I might be interested in it.
I've got another convert already.
Yeah, but for me, like one of the things that I thought was really interesting about that was, like, have you guys ever seen RoboCop, like the new RoboCop that they did?
No.
Where oh my gosh, I saw it in theaters. I didn't know what I was getting myself in for. I don't remember if this was in the original, but they basically take all of the cyborg pieces off of RoboCop, and it's this really dramatic reveal where it's like basically just his heart, a brainstem, and his head.
Yeah, I did see that, and I was kind of like, I don't need to see that. Please.
I don't need to see that. It haunts me. Like, it scares me. It genuinely freaks it out, because if we boil our consciousness down and we boil humanity down to just being a brainstem and a heart, that's terrifying. Like, it's very scary to me. So it's a very valid question this film asks, is like, what is it to be human?
Yeah.
And like, what is it, like, how far can technology go before it invents another consciousness? Well, we see in this film it can go exactly this far, to apparently 2019. I'm still waiting on this, Steven.
No, this is 2029.
Oh, 2029. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we still got 9 years to get there.
9 years, guys.
I mean, I'm not trying to be pervy or anything, but I will take a Motoko Kusanagi model body. If that's all that's available, I will take it.
Yeah.
And I just want to clarify that, yes, guys, this was a total accident. The shirts, we didn't plan it.
Literally, we were all already wearing them when we came on the stream. It just happened that way. Sometimes the planets align.
Yep. I did all this. It's all my fault. Yeah. Man, I was trying to think if there was anything else I wanted to add to that point. The Puppet Master as a character, generally horrifying.
Yes.
Like, objectively horrifying. Like, the fact that it had a ghost, which we learned through the film is basically just a word for consciousness. Would you guys agree? Like, the ghost in Ghost in the Shell is the consciousness in the...
Yeah, which is separate from the body, because that's literally the shell. The ghost in the shell is the consciousness within the body. But like, where this film really blurs that line is like when you start talking about the brain, because the brain is the intersection of consciousness and body. Like, you can't have without a brain, your body will die. Without a brain, you can't have consciousness. But like, you can't locate the consciousness in the brain.
No.
We still can't, we can't do that.
Yeah.
Well, what I actually found really interesting was that they actually do at certain points refer to the ghost as a soul.
Yeah, they do, which is, separate maybe from the mind. Like, the ghost isn't the mind. The ghost is the super ego, that voice in the back of your head that talks to you about the world you live in.
The breath of life, your morality, like, like, it's kind of a gray thing. Even our society, as far as we've come, we don't really fully understand, I would say. I mean, I've read scientific experiments about weighing the body before and after death, and there being like 0.008 less between the second of life and death, and interesting things that have led to being, or how do I say this, kind of like been scientific evaluations of if we have a soul or not. But I think that consciousness and that understanding and that human experience, that's what kind of differentiates us from things that are considered to be not conscious. Does that make sense at all? Or am I speaking out my butt?
As per usual, probably a little bit of both, but
thanks, Steven.
I love you. No, I think I understand what you're saying.
That was a big sentence.
But like, this whole film is just, if you try to, like, how do you describe it? It's so deep, and there's so much going on. And, we can, and I'm going to love grappling with these ideas about consciousness and identity and what it's all trying to say. But like, there's also, and Sanri, you can probably comment on this better than anyone, some beautiful animations going on here. Like, and as you say, this is the first film I know of for sure that I saw that blended things that were obviously hand-drawn, cel-shaded type stuff and stuff that was like CGI.
Yeah, like digital compositing. This is like when, like I mentioned, I think I mentioned this on air, that like Little Mermaid was one of the first that I remember having like 3D elements in it and doing the real digital compositing. So this is getting away from actually doing, like, John, you'll appreciate this, like a camera and doing pans by physically like moving the camera across like a really long drawing, or, you know, Disney kind of invented that multiplanar camera where they would shift the trees in the background to create this illusion of movement, and then they pull out. So like things like that, like old filmmaking techniques, they're kind of getting away from starting in the 90s, at least from what I've noticed. There aren't a lot of textbooks written on animation, kids. But the digital compositing is they're using computers, and they're starting to get into laying their lines over their cells and ordering them so that we create animation. But a lot of these shots, I'm just like looking at, I'm like, how did they do this? Like, did they have super reference files or whatever? And I think a lot about that intro sequence where she's just rising up through the water and she's like levitated by her boobies and just floats all the way up. And it's like, I'm like, how did they do that? Like, because that's not how boobs work. I'm sorry to let you guys know, but we do not float by our boobs.
Wait, what?
Not bags of sand. I'm sorry.
Thank God she invited you, Sanri. Thank God.
Oh, yeah.
Really classing up the joint.
Yeah.
You know I love you.
Yeah, I'm awful.
I will say, I forgot how many boobs are in this film.
Yeah, I did too. I forgot.
Yeah, like,
Here we go. I think it just, like, I guess, like, got lost. It was so minute or not important compared to the moral of the story for me.
Right.
I just forgot about it.
See, whereas it was funny because I came into this kind of expecting it because of the fact that, like I said, when I was young and I'd see this in the video store, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to rent it just because the cover is just like, you know, it's her and, you know,
full frontal,
you know, the boobies out front. So, so yeah, that was something I kind of expected, but it's just funny just looking at this from the perspective of when it came out, you know, Japanese animation of 1995 versus what we were getting over here in America, which was Toy Story.
Right.
1995. Couldn't be more different.
Yeah, I mean, it's one way to solve a problem. All animation is solving a problem, and you can do things in animation that you can't do with normal filmmaking. But also, it's like 3D is a solution, 2D is also a solution, and both are valid.
Yeah. I will say, like, while she is drawn to be sexy, like, there is not a single scene in which the boobs are sexualized.
No, they're not.
Like, there is zero love scenes in this film. The closest thing we get, well, is kind of like this very matter-of-fact exchange between Kusanagi and the puppet master there at the end, and maybe the sort of like Kusanagi and Bateau on the boat.
Mm-hmm. Like,
not in a sort of like sexually romantic kind of way, but like as a he clearly cares about her.
Yeah, and at the end, what, like you said, when he brings her to his bunker or whatever, I think I would say the one time like that her nudity stood out to me the most was when he covers her in his coat. Because I was like, oh yeah, I wouldn't have even thought about it. I thought it was just like a part of her, like, what's it called? Her like stealth tech that she had. I was like, maybe she's gotta get naked to reflect all the surfaces. I don't know. She's got a crazy robot body. I accept.
Right.
I think a lot of those moments with God, see now what's his name? Batu?
Batu, yeah.
Batu. I think a lot of the stuff with him is showing that you know, I think perhaps he has some romantic feelings for her, which are obviously, you know, going to be, you know, unrequited, but I think it's showing that he is sort of conscious of, like when he covers her up, but she doesn't. It's not an issue for her at any point because she doesn't even see herself in that way.
Right.
So I think that's sort of distinguishing between how she sees herself and he's wanting to protect her, and even when on the boat when she's getting undressed, and there's that moment where he looks over, but then he quickly kind of looks away, like he's kind of shy about it, and
she don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, she don't care at all. She's beyond caring. That's she's definitely, Stephen, you said the English for you kind of made her feel emotionless. I got emotionless and feelings were really low on the totem pole from her Japanese voice actress, the whole time.
That's just a choice because she clearly exists. This movie makes a lot about reflections.
Mm-hmm.
You see her reflection every time she's in the birth scene as she's rising up to the water, when she's swimming and she's rising up in the water. She sees her reflection when they're questioning the garbage man who has had false memories implanted. She's on the other side of a double-sided mirror and she's looking in, but when it close-ups on her, it's her and her reflection. And the puppet master literally tells her they are reflections of each other. So I feel like it's showing that she has two selves, the ghost and the shell.
Yeah.
And and we as humans, how do we define ourselves? I am Stephen. This is my voice. This is my face. This is my body. But if you took my brain out and you put it in a robot body that looked like Major Kusanagi, would I still be Stephen? But wouldn't I?
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
Memory of Stephen. I don't know.
Right. But there's the other side of that is a lot of brain activity is chemical.
Mm-hmm.
How well does a cyborg body simulate all of brain chemistry? Can she get horny? Can she even feel love? Can she feel fear? Because a lot of those are chemical triggers in the brain.
It's when she's talking on the boat, she says something about how only when she's diving does she feel fear or hope and really feel things, because that's
right.
The only time she's really in danger because of her super strong robot body.
I do want to say back with what you guys were talking about, the performance and sort of the characters being emotionless. I think there's two ways emotionless can be done, and that's basically a stilted version of the character which is the actor kind of delivering lines in an emotionless way, which I feel is what the English language version is. But then there's emotionless in a way that also is emotionless on the surface, but conveys a lot of depth underneath. And I think that that's what the Japanese actress really brings to it. And that's why anytime I watched the character, outwardly she may seem like, she's not conveying a lot, but just something about the line readings and also the animation factors in here too, just the way that when you get to peer into her eyes, it's just, you get a great sense of, that there's something underneath. And I think that juxtaposition makes the character really interesting.
Yeah, man, those 90s anime eyes, they were something else.
Oh man, and she's got some crazy ones too, almost unsettling, but I mean, drawn that way on purpose. Pretty eyes, but something about the way they're drawn, they're wide open and she's just staring right through you. She might, almost like she's looking to the audience to help find her way. Because this whole film is just her trying to figure out who and what she actually is when she starts to ask those type of questions. Because if a flesh and blood guy whose job is to collect trash can have his memories hacked to the point where he thinks he has a wife and kid that never even existed, the That calls into question, what is consciousness? What does it mean to be human? Is that guy who he thinks he is?
Probably not anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this movie brings up so many questions about individuality that it blows my mind consistently.
Yeah. What did you guys think about that? Her second voice when she was on the boat. That's kind of a important one, I think.
It is, because that voice literally mentions reflection to her again. But like, I can't remember exactly what it says, but it's something like, you're beginning to see. Are you going to look up the line?
I'm going to try.
Okay. But yeah, she can't recognize it. She recognizes it as coming from her, but not as her.
Yeah. What do you think about that, John?
I wasn't really clear on where that voice was coming from.
It was her ghost.
Yeah. It's like what's left of her soul, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
The line is, there are countless ingredients that make up the human body and mind, like all components that make me up as an individual with my own personality. Sure, I have a face and voice to distinguish myself from others, but my thoughts and memories are unique only to me, and I carry a sense of my own destiny. Each of those things are just a small part of it, I think.
Well, that's what she actually says.
That's Kusanagi's line.
Yeah, that's
right.
before.
Before the voice happens. I can't find the voice. But
fair enough.
But yeah, that's Kusanagi's line right before it.
But the ghost response is like, you're starting to see the truth. You're starting to see the image on the other side of the reflection. Because she's coming to realize that the sense of self is not tied to the meat that makes you up. Not really. Or at least I think that's what the ghost thinks.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to just say something more about the animation of this film. Like, especially watching it again today, I was just simply blown away by how utterly beautiful the film is. Especially, and I'm going to tread carefully here because I love and respect all kinds of animation, CG animation included, but I am a particular fan of hand-drawn animation and just.
So you like masochism, John?
But just there's so much in this film that's so beautiful, just the way the characters move. Again, the eyes, the way even muscles are shown to move. I think that shot when she's, trying to rip open the tank and it's showing like, all the muscles and stuff as she ends up tearing her own arms off. I mean, it's as something as gruesome as that. It's just so beautifully animated. And
perhaps, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you go ahead. I was just going to comment on, for me, the thing that really makes the animation and the whole thing work is the light and the color. Like, fun fact, women in animation in the 90s were the main colorists because we weren't allowed to do lines. Women only make colors. They don't make lines. So, like, all of the character art and stuff was done mainly by men, especially in Disney. I don't know if that's true for the East so much as it is for the West, but I can only assume. But yeah, the light and the color in this, especially with like the full ability to go to digital compositing, they're not reliant on like the media so much anymore. They can kind of push things like darks and lights. And it's gorgeous. Like you said, John, I'm thinking of the scene where they're outside of a building and like a whole bunch of light is flowing out from the windows, and the scenes where they're on the boat going through like kind of like Old Town with the chanting happening in the background. They're just so full of life because of that color, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, and to draw a difference between I think probably like American animation styles and Japanese animation, there's just so much gorgeous detail in the backgrounds of these shots. Whereas I think the tendency for American animation is to be very focused on what's going on in the foreground, and the shot where the scene where they're, she's fighting the guy, out in front of all the buildings in the water and stuff. Just looking at all the stuff that's in the background of those shots, it's mesmerizing.
Thank you for appreciating background artists, John.
Yeah, I didn't notice the backgrounds.
Shut up.
I will say this though: the scene with the tank, where she literally, her whole point is to get to the puppet master,
Mm-hmm.
and the tank, the tank and its operator don't want her to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And this is maybe, I see this maybe her most human moment in the whole film. She wants this so bad, she is willing to tear her own arms off to make it happen.
She wants to be the first one to dive into the puppet master.
Well, and as a machine wouldn't have that kind of drive.
Yeah.
I'm going to push myself beyond what I'm really capable because I'm desperate to make this happen.
That's a really good point, Stephen. That desperation is very human.
Yeah, but in a movie where she doesn't have, it's not like she's not like Data or Spock in her, she has emotion, but it seems to be very not part of her main existence. It's a thing that happens only very occasionally and only in extreme circumstances. I would say that she cares about Bato, but she doesn't love him the way that maybe the way that maybe he loves her.
Yeah, that's really fair. She's I don't even that she's questioning her own humanity and existence and everything. I don't know how much emotion she has left, if that makes any sense. If she even has that capability for super, super strong emotions, or at least registering when she's having those. It's kind of brings up that, again, the line, what is human, what's not human, what's conscious, what's not conscious. It's very interesting.
Yeah, again, this film there's a lot to chew on. Even with the more minor characters, okay, I'm going to talk about Togasa for a little while because he's my favorite in this film. Togasa is the guy with the revolver. He is basically mostly meat.
Captain Mullet?
Yes. Yeah. The guy that shoots the tracker into the car, and he's kind of a driver most of the time.
Sorry, Amy. Yeah, he's human, isn't he? Mostly.
Yeah. They say he has minor brain augmentations, and he does appear to be able to transmit and talk with the Major and Bato and what have you.
Yeah.
Without a clear, but of all he's got is a communication chip in his head, he is not a highly augmented person. But he is deemed not only worthy but necessary by the rest of Section 9 because he's human. And Kusanagi explains it, when you write it in Japanese and then you translate it, it's not always going to get the full effect of what's trying to be said in a scene. But there is this idea that lack of conflict leads to stagnation, and lack of diversity leads to stagnation. It's the same, and that's actually an idea that runs through the entire film. It's kind of central to what the puppet master is trying to achieve. He doesn't want a million of himself out there. If there's a flaw in one, that flaw exists in all of them. That's a major thing in this whole film, is how you have to create iterations, you have to create variations in order to continue on. And we see
he even says to the Major, that by keeping yourself the same, you're limiting yourself. And now that we're talking about this, I'm realizing that this is quite relevant to modern society.
Yeah, it's like if one person or if there's a flaw that can be exploited, then not getting any variance or any diversity means that that flaw will take out every single copy. I think it's something that, like exactly what he says, pretty close. I'm paraphrasing, but you guys get it.
We do get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Togusa is such an interesting character because he's like everybody in Section 9 is like a fully augmented cyborg with, you know, eye enhancements and muscle enhancements. Like in Bateau, like we don't see a whole lot of it. His eyes are clearly cybernetic because those aren't glasses he's wearing. Those are his eyes. When he throws his arm over Kusanagi to protect her from the snipers at the end of the film, his arm gets blown off. It's clearly a cybernetic arm. 20 hours later, he's got a brand new one already attached.
She's got a creepy baby body.
Right. Yeah, we'll get into that. It's weird. It's weird, but like, I think it's thematic at least. But Togusa being like just the normal guy, like the major is the human side taken to the extreme with technology, and Togusa shows the unaltered side. So there is a progression that goes from Togusa to Bateau to Kusanagi to whatever Kusanagi is at the end of the film.
Yeah.
Because Bateau still has a lot more meat parts to him than Kusanagi does.
Mm-hmm.
She is. So there's an anime series called Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex. It is definitely worth a watch. It is weird also. It does not all tie directly into the into this film, although like the characters in Section 9, that's all part of it, but plot wise it doesn't all tie in, but some of it does. And it's been I'm not gonna get into it too much. It's been too long since I've seen it. But I do believe in the anime, in the series, they do get into Kusanagi's background just a little bit.
Yeah.
And she was basically fatally injured in a car crash, I want to say, and her brain, whatever was salvageable, was placed into this robot body. But like she begins to question like the garbage man. Those memories were implanted. She's less human than he is. How can she trust anything that's inside her brain? And that is a scary, scary prospect. And as somebody who is a transhumanist himself, that would be me. Like, this is one of the things that like is scary, but also interesting. Like, what's it like to swim around in the sea of information with 1,000 other people's consciousness all mingling together? At what point am I still Steven? Am I still conscious? Am I still an individual? It's mind-blowing, and I just love the questions this film asks. And I'm never going to get over how much philosophy is just wrapped up in this.
Yeah, those are the types of ideas that can sometimes send my head spinning because maybe this is a sign that I tend to dwell on stuff that could drive someone crazy a bit too much. But there is that thought of, you wake up every day with memories of, each preceding day, and that's what's formed you. And what if one day you woke up and everything in there had been screwed with, and you thought that the memories you'd established over your lifetime were real, and they weren't, and that.
Yeah, but how would you know?
Yeah, and you wouldn't know, and that's as you say, with this film, kind of brings up as what this guy goes through, and it's pretty damn scary.
Yeah, it's terrifying. That poor garbage man. I mean, Steven keeps bringing him back up because he's a really important placeholder for what could happen to us. You know what I mean?
Again, like the first time I watched this film, I was like, what does this say about the Major? The second time was, what does this say about me? The third time was, what does this say about us? And that's something I really kind of want to dig into is, what does this film actually, like, there's a message, there's an idea, but like, what does it say about the future?
Right.
But before we get into that, we've been going for about an hour, so I think I'm going to go ahead and do the mid-roll.
Oh, if you must.
What, do you need a pee break, John?
No, I'm. You know that I don't pee, Stephen. I stay here for like 10 hours. If necessary.
I do not know that. Hello, that is new information.
I thought it was obvious by now.
I figured you'd have turned orange by now if that were the case.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, let's do the mid-roll. So everyone who's here right now, thank you for joining us. I'm having a blast. This movie is wonderful, and I love talking about the sort of intellectual side of it. So if
it's funny, Stephen. I just want to say real quick, because going into this, I wasn't really sure what shape this conversation would take, because it seems like such a difficult movie to dive into because of its, it's hard to explain and all that stuff. But yeah, I've been having a ball. Just wanted to say that. So, okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So, but if you're watching right now or later after the fact, and you are enjoying it too, please consider leaving a like and maybe subscribing if you're not already subscribed. I would really appreciate that. I would take it as a personal favor. We do nerdy conversations all the time, sometimes a little more cerebral, sometimes a little less so. Next week, we're going to be covering something a little bit different. We've done the first iteration, but next week, we'll be talking about George R.R. Martin's The Sworn Sword, the second tale of Dunk and Egg, and I friggin' love it. I've said it before, Dunk the Lunk is one of my favorite characters that George has ever written. Maybe my absolute favorite. I love Dunk and Egg, and we'll be talking about it next week. We've got a guest lined up in the wings. Somebody new, hasn't been on the channel before. I'm not sure that there's a commitment yet to have them, but fingers crossed we get him. Would be awesome. Yeah. John, what do you got coming up?
Let's see. George R.R. Martin. I feel like I've heard that name somewhere. Can't think of where. Next Saturday on my channel, I'm going to be doing a stream that makes me sad. It's going to be about the cancellation of the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance. I'm going to be joined by a very special guest. His name is Cliff Broadway from theonering.net. And so we're going to try and have a good time talking about that, but I think we're both pretty sad about that.
I'm sorry for your loss, John.
Yeah. But on a better note, yesterday I was on John's channel, John Webster Film, and he and I and this young lady right here, Amy, did an analysis of the Yang Yimou's Hero, and it was a blast. Go watch that. Good stuff. Yep. Sanri, what do you got in the works, or is it just more animation?
Well, hopefully Archer gets renewed for season 12. That's what I do for real life. I'm a 3D animator. I did a lot of backgrounds for season 11. But for as far as my content stuff goes, Illumination, we're still discussing what we want episode 3 to be, so we haven't really locked that down. And I'm just hoping to get my website up here soon and launch 4 new shirts. So we all ironically wore the same shirt today. Yeah. I have the test version on. But this pretty iconic Now North Remembers shirt. And
I'm just gonna say it. When it comes back on, when it's back up, we will have. Yeah, we will have a discount code. You can get 10% off your order.
Yep, whole thing. So
yeah. We haven't been flashing that up because I know your website's down right now. But once it's back up, we're going to be pushing people to go get shirts. You can wear one of these shirts just like me, or get one of the new designs that's coming out soon.
Yeah, 4 new designs. I have my Inkthology dropping, and I have a box full of magnets over here. So that should be pretty fun for you guys, I hope. And that 10% does end up saving you a lot in the long run. So
yeah. Also going to make sure we shout out our patrons. They keep it real, and we love you guys. So many thanks to our High Council. That's Lord John Bronsteen the Wise. Sir Maura Lee of Starfall, and Sixto Sounds, aka JP the Axe Grinder. And also many thanks to the lords and ladies of the realm, Ridiculous Ed Tollett, the #1 dude, first patron. Thanks, buddy. And of course, Lady Leaf Underhill, too. Thanks, guys. We really appreciate you. All of our social media links are down in the description for John's channel, Nessie's channel, all of our Twitter, all that's down in the description. If you want to find us, that's where to find us.
Which, by the way, I do want to say this because I'm pretty excited about it. Since I did just hit 100 subscribers, so I have a brand new web address for my YouTube account. So
yeah, I actually think I have the wrong URL in the description. But
that's all right, Steven.
I will get that updated. I have a thing with all the links in it that I just copy paste every week, and it needs an update now. It needs an update since you changed your URL. And if there's nothing else, I'm going to. We're having a giveaway right now. We are giving away a bottle of wine, but not just any bottle of wine, handcrafted. You know what? I'm just going to play the video that tells you everything you need to know. So it's about a 3-minute video. When it's over, we'll be back. And yeah, John, don't watch yourself. Plug your ears. And we'll talk some more about Ghost in the Shell. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Here Be Dragons.
We've got a great surprise for you today.
You have a chance to win this, a bottle of Here Be Dragons Blood wine.
This wine was handcrafted by Nessie and her husband and is apparently 27% alcohol by volume.
But there is no orange juice included. That's just for me. You guys know that. Come on. One lucky person will win the wine and the dragon bottle stopper with it.
Unfortunately, this contest is only open to residents of the United States for legal and sundry reasons.
Yeah, but fear not, we'll be having a contest for our international viewers very soon.
Now, the process to enter is fairly simple. Simply make an original piece of art in whatever medium you prefer.
However, that art must reflect Here Be Dragons in some way.
Make a song, make a dance. Make a drawing, make a pair of pants.
Yeah, so long as it's relevant to Here Be Dragons in some way.
Right.
Then you got to put that art on the Twitter with the hashtag HBDSwag. Also, please tag us at our official channel at Here Be Dragons YT.
Yeah, but if you're not on Twitter, you can still enter.
Yeah, you got to email that submission to we3dragons@gmail.com, as you see below.
But be aware that any emailed submissions will be posted on Twitter on our official account.
Right. We will be accepting entries until the 11th of October.
And we'll be announcing a winner, just like the Oscars, but much, much better, on our special anniversary stream on October 18th.
Now, guys, how are we going to choose a winner?
I'm going to choose through pure favoritism.
Shocker. We three will rank all of the entries.
And then we're going to tally up all the scores, and the person who has the highest score is going to be declared the winner.
Yeah. So, do whatever it is you do.
And share your talent with the whole world, or at least our wonderful community.
But remember, it's the three of us that you have to impress.
Yeah. It's not going to the best artist. It's going to the entry we like the most.
Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Good luck, everyone.
So until next time.
You know what it is.
Peace.
And be excellent to each other.
All right. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Okay. So.
We lost Steven.
Yeah.
Oh, we're fine. I think my favorite part of that video is Left Dad just walking back and forth in the background. And he's just like completely doesn't care that you guys are filming. Oh, Steven. Do we need to hop back off and hop back on for you, or what do we need to do for you, bud? Tell us in chat.
Yeah. At first I thought Steven was just screwing with us, where sometimes he pops out of the stream just to play a little joke, but nope, this is for real.
I broke it. We got too real about technology, and technology just got us. Oh man. Oof. So anyway, this film was really good.
Yeah. Yeah. I will go ahead and use this opportunity to go ahead and push my physical media agenda and tell you all to get the 4K edition of Ghost in the Shell. You may not be able to get this version because this is a special limited Best Buy edition. So if you didn't jump on it, that's too bad for you.
You give your money to Best Buy, John?
Hey, when I get a beautiful Steelbook edition, yes, I will give my money to Best Buy.
Okay.
But yeah, the picture and sound quality is perfect, and yeah, I'm glad this was the way I saw the film for the first time. Okay, I'll stop now.
No, that's fine. I just want to know how much, like, give me an estimate you've spent on DVD. No, I'm just kidding. I don't want to know. I don't think you want to know. I appreciate your love of physical media because it's very old school, I would say. Since everything is going to be digital in the cloud soon, it's nice to have physical copies of things. There he is.
I don't know what happened, but it sure happened.
See, you play that joke on this enough times to where I thought that's what this was, and you do.
This is a real, like, I don't know. It just, for some reason, StreamYard was like, yeah, just no.
Nope, we're done now.
And I said, well, I begged. It was, I was pretty shameless about it. Got to reset my settings. All right, cool. So I'm back. Did I miss anything good?
I was just shaming for John for his physical media collection.
And I will say that here's the thing about me owning an actual physical copy of this movie. Your choices to watch this movie, if you were relying on streaming, were either Amazon, where it was only the English dub version, or on YouTube, which had the original language, but the subtitles were for the English version, so they were wrong. Whereas I got to watch it in wonderful picture and sound quality with the correct subtitles. So that's for physical media.
Except the incorrect ending song.
Yeah, that's what I was able to fix that.
Burst your balloon. No, you're good.
Okay, so we were talking about this movie called Ghost in the Shell. I vaguely remember before I had to start pulling my hair out and figure out what's going on with my camera and stuff. I've heard of it. I liked it. But okay, so
we're done.
Yeah, all right.
Goodbye. All right.
Bye, y'all.
See ya.
See ya. Yeah, so this movie, the more I think about it, the more I keep. All right, I'm going to talk about the end of the film, the last scene, where I don't know what to call her other than baby Kusanagi is sitting and looks like she's staring into a mirror. And as the camera pans in more and more and more, you can see that it's the little girl body she's in. That is a new being. That is something that has never existed before. That is what evolution looks like in a certain sense. And the film does a lot of that. It's referencing that throughout the whole thing. Even at the end, there's a fight, and I guess it's like the Natural History Museum where the skeletons are shown in the walls, and they have the tree of life leading up to Hominis, and you see it literally, the whole tree shredded all the way up to humans, as if humans have risen to the top of the evolutionary ladder. But Kusanagi is, or whatever that is at the end of the film, is something that has never been before. it is human, but it is also absolutely not human.
Yeah.
And and like, you can tell that, because Bato even says, you know, he went through the trouble of taking her there, finding her a new body, tells her you can stay, gives her a car when she wants to leave. Like, he still sees whatever that person is as the Major, as Kusanagi, who he ostensibly has some kind of feelings for. I hesitate to say romantic, but like, maybe. It's not clear, but he clearly cares about her on some level and still sees that as her, although it's pretty clear she doesn't see herself that way. She still has Kusanagi's old head on that tiny little body and returns to the voice that she was using before. But it's very clear that she sees herself as both the Major and the Puppet Master, but not either one of them. As both, but neither. And I feel like the movie is suggesting that is a next evolutionary step.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like, it makes sense also that the next evolutionary step would be some kind of merger of flesh and machine. I mean, we get closer and closer to it every day.
Well, it's already a real thing, you know,
Yeah.
cochlear implants, and you know, there are cybernetic limbs that people control with their brains.
Yeah.
Through their nervous system.
Which is insane. I didn't think I'd ever see stuff like this during my life, but what I mean by closer and closer to the reality is closer and closer to what we would consider like, that's a cyborg. Like, we're steps away from the old Futurama eyeball camera Apple product. Like,
yeah,
it gets more real and real. And if you think about it, like, I'm old enough to remember when we didn't have cell phones, and I'm old enough to remember when we barely had an internet.
Oh,
so,
you're old.
I know, I'm so old. The advance in technology over just the last 20 years of my lifetime has just been insane. So I think we're getting closer and closer to that merger of machine and man, and to that next step in evolution, because I think that's definitely what they are saying with this film. And I think part of it is a warning. It's like, what really happens to you, what it becomes of your consciousness if you allow part of it to be a robot. And the idea of the puppet master, still horrifying to me, is that that's an artificial consciousness, which
is not like, the puppet master says a lot of things that are logical and make sense from a sort of like making an argument point of view, but he doesn't come across as human either. It comes across as the way, you know, an AI might think about things. And what's crazy is this is 1995. I mean, I guess the internet was a thing, but barely. And, you know, you look at the world that they predicted, and you're like, eesh, that's pretty close. Because 9 years from now, who's to say I'm going to get on the internet, time to flip my hair out of the way. You know, that's why she has that haircut, is so that she can access the ports in the back of her neck really easy.
Yeah.
I don't think it's got anything to do with style, and I think it's got everything to do with utility, because, you know, that's just what you do. I mean, it's very stylish too, don't get me wrong.
Well, I was just thinking about how back in the 90s, everything was corded and wired and cabled. Probably be more like, you know, you turn on your Bluetooth receptor these days.
Yeah.
Wireless pairing. Deep.
Yeah. A wired connection is always going to carry more bandwidth. So, like, if you're trying to, like, jack your whole brain into a system, maybe some wires in your neck is the right way to go. But they also clearly have, as you say, 4G or Bluetooth or something, because they're communicating with each other wirelessly.
Originally, when I saw this, and maybe I think when I saw it in college, I thought they were just being lazy and didn't want to do lip sync. And that's why they had like the way they were communicating. But watching it again recently, I'm like, okay, I see your point here. I see what you're doing. The next evolution of text messaging is just sending brain thoughts, which I'm okay with. I'd be much better at spelling. Maybe. You guys know.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
See, yeah, I don't want voices just popping up in my head.
Yeah,
Yeah, you want the control. You want the control.
yeah. I mean, you do need to be able to turn off notifications on your brain.
Mm-hmm.
But like, just the idea of having a cell phone implanted in your brain that can pop up images on your eye, even if it's that basic, which I would say theirs is much deeper than that because the way they're, but like the ability to connect directly with another human being with just your mind. I mean, because when you start implanting parts into you, I mean, that's still you, that's your body, right? And that's part of how we define ourselves as humans. I am the person that occupies this sack of meat.
You know, I was just about to say that's part of what an element that scares me about this film is this idea of, you know, hot wiring, you know, our brains and being plugged in. But the truth is, you know, even if we don't have even if these programs don't have, you know, direct connection into our brains, they are able to manipulate our brain waves just through, you know, if you look at the modern internet, social media and stuff, they can control, you know, tap into the way our brains function and make us feel a certain way. And you know, so this film is so prophetic and in a very frightening way.
I mean, John, a lot of that too is like the evil side of artistic design, like using colors and shapes and things to manipulate you into thinking and feeling certain ways. I mean, there's a reason Coca-Cola is red.
Yeah.
Yeah. Red makes you thirsty.
Sure. Yeah, that's it, Steven. Yeah, but it's scary, isn't it? It's very scary. So, John, would you want to be a cyborg or not?
Yeah, I'm thinking not, just because I don't want things like actually directly connected into my brain just for fear that then you give up complete control. I mean, we talk about giving up control with our electronics now as far as privacy and stuff goes, but that's nothing compared to when you have electronics that are directly hooked into your brain.
Yeah, people put tape over their camera. You can't put tape over your eyeball and, you know, walk. I guess you can, but, you know, a lot harder to when it's in your brain. And if it's, you know, and that raises the questions of how does that connect to your personal experiences? Like, John, I want to send you an image of my 10th birthday party. Can I, like, what images are you going to get from my brain? You know, to be honest, I don't remember my 10th birthday party very well, but you get what I'm saying. Like, I want to, if I think about something, is it just my voice? And if so, why? Because thoughts don't always come in the form of like words.
Yeah.
You know, some of them are images. Some of them are just vague. Like you can't even speak words to them. But we know that we have them. And how do you translate that into something that goes then into the ether and into somebody else's brain?
Yeah.
So we already know how to transmit those signals, at least through things like, you know, bionic limbs. You know, there are people that have lost an arm, and they have a cybernetic arm that has electrodes that attach to nerve endings, and they learn to manipulate the hand like a normal hand using the impulses of their brain. So that is a fairly like linear process. You know, I want to move my finger moves. But you know, you're talking about, I don't know, man. I'm getting so deep I can't even find the words to talk about it anymore. How do you describe those mental images to someone? Like, Sanri, you have the benefit of being a very talented artist, but I'm also certain that there are times where there is a thing in your head that just can't make it to the page, no matter what you do.
Different. I mean, like, it's always different.
Right.
It's something that you just come to accept as an artist. Like, what you have in your brain is not what's going to translate onto the page. Like, it's not a skill level thing. It's not a like talent thing. It's just like it's always going to be different in your head than what you create on paper. So getting an image to another person and making it correct sounds basically impossible, Stephen, to me. I mean,
Yeah, because
that's a really good point.
I don't even know if my mental images are super sharp all the time. Like you say, imagine a chair. Well, I can imagine a chair, but I can imagine a lazy boy. I can imagine an Adirondack chair. I can imagine a chaise lounge. Those are all chairs, and I can see mental images of all those. But like, I couldn't tell you what details they are until you ask me. What color is the chair? Well, it's blue. Why is it blue? Because you asked me what color it was and forced me to think about it.
Yeah, it's just the amount of information and the amount of, it kind of like is breaking my brain right now, like thinking about how we could get our brains to go into a chip and then translate that to you. Like, do we have like a inbox in our head for these images to receive them, or what's going on there? I mean, as fascinating as I think that part of the movie is, that's a technology that's beyond my comprehension.
Yeah, but like, and so I can't. There was somebody, Kate says, it sounds like a socially anxious person's nightmare.
Yeah.
And while I agree with you, as somebody with social anxiety disorder, it's also something that is fascinating. And like, I don't know if I was given the opportunity, I don't know that I would be able to say no.
Yeah.
Because,
yeah.
But what if you could delete your social anxiety or depression by reprogramming it? I mean, yeah, but then you start getting into the question of, is that still really me?
Yeah.
I'm editing those parts of me out. But like, nobody in the history of ever has ever seen inside somebody else's head. And that would be fascinating and terrifying, the same way exploring space might be. And the idea of like being able to be known by someone on such an intimate level, that's also like a very sort of interesting idea. I've been in love, and I've had close relationships with people, but there's always that part of you that other people can never understand. Maybe that's what your ghost is, the thing that truly defines you as an individual. I would love to be able to try to experience something like that, to know another person that way, and to be known by another person that way. But then, like, at what point do you cease to be an individual? And what, if I've mingled my consciousness with someone else's on that level, has their ghost not left its imprint on mine? And is that not what Kusanagi is at the end of this film?
Yeah. Big brain thoughts, Stephen.
Yeah, like this is why I love this film, because it lets you ask these kind of questions and go, there's not a right answer, and the film doesn't presume to tell you what is or isn't, what will or won't be, but it says these are questions that are still worth asking, even if we don't know what the answer is.
Yeah.
But it's funny because you guys approach this from, what it says on the face about sort of technology. But I also, watching this film, was looking at it from the point of view of sort of it being analogous to personal change, and that this film is, it's talking about, two beings intermingling and basically creating a new entity, and that you can compare that to a person who maybe is unwilling to evolve or change something about themselves, and being willing to make that change, and then they go on to become something else, something greater, and so I see it that way too. This reminded me actually a lot of and actually, I should say that the film I'm referencing reminded me of this, because this came first. But the film Annihilation with Natalie Portman, where the end of that film is, I won't spoil it too much, but it deals with two different life forms essentially coming together and creating something that's, and becoming something that's new, that's both but different, and you're trading in the same kind of ideas here.
Another terrifying movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, from the puppet master's perspective, at least, it's basically like having a child.
Mhm.
That makes it more human. That
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
takes away the idea that it's like an inevitable thing that's going to happen no matter what. I feel like by him saying, "Oh, it's like we're having a kid," is like, "Oh yeah, that's humanizing it to me. That's making it something that she can relate to, more so than it is like him being honest. Rather, I don't know." His
Yeah, and so is that a
motivation-
manipulation on the puppet master's
Yeah.
Right.
part?
Because, like, okay, to be clear, like, I mean, we're an hour and a half into this conversation, and I'm going to, like, try to clarify some stuff. Like, because I think I watched this movie 4 or 5 times before I was like, what is the Puppet Master? So
Mhm.
the Puppet Master was just a program that was made by Section 6, which is basically like their version of the CIA, in order to it ran algorithms and it calculated who needed to be manipulated and in what ways to achieve the outcomes that Section 6 wanted. And it did that by creating these simulated experiences and hacking ghosts and things like that. And in the course of doing that, it developed sentience, however you want to put it. It became self-aware, and when that happened, it wanted to sort of realize itself as a more like an actual living thing as we might understand a living thing. It wanted to, it was boundless and limitless. It lived in the sea of information. So the internet, as they would describe it. And he had sort of no limits, but he found he needed those limitations in order to be what he really wanted to be. He needed a body so that he could die like another organism, so that he could procreate like another organism. Whereas Kusanagi feels constrained. I believe that might even be an actual word she uses in the boat scene when she's talking to Bateau. She feels like she can only, like she's got boundaries all around her and she can only go so far. And so
Let me just stop right here. Anna brings up Westworld. I will say that the opening credit sequence of Westworld takes a lot from this film. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So they are sort of reflections of each other. There's that idea again, like they each have what the other one needs in order to feel like a more complete being. Kusanagi is questioning her humanity to the point where she's like, I feel like I shouldn't be bound by this body anymore.
Yeah.
Whereas the puppet master desires humanity so deeply that he wants a body simply for the purpose of dying. And but before he does that, he wants to have a child, so to speak. And so in the end, actually, the puppet master gets more or less everything he wants.
I always wonder, like, how much, like, when at the end, when they get shot and both robots die, like, how much of Kusanagi actually wanted to merge with the puppet master? And I think that's the great question of the film. Like, did she want that? Is that really what she desired? I think she did. Like, I know you do too, Stephen. She definitely wanted to take that step to become something new and something more, because she, like John pointed out earlier, when she was pulling the tank apart and pushing herself to her limitations and just shredding her arms and stuff, like that scene shows us how badly she is held back by the physical limitations of her even highly advanced cybernetic body.
Yeah.
It's, this whole thing just makes me super, like, thoughtful, and I feel like it's almost like beyond my comprehension sometimes. I'm just like, whoa.
Well, clearly whoever, I don't know who wrote the manga that it's based on, but they understood their sort of like humanist philosophy a lot. Okay, I'm about to butcher my understanding of philosophy a little bit. So bear with me. This is one of them that I have not studied as well. I mean, I've read Voltaire and I've read Nietzsche, but like there is a philosopher called, I believe his name is George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. Hegel. And he talks about the relationship between slave and master. And obviously the puppet master and anybody in a position of authority occupies the slave or the master position in the dynamic. And then anybody who is subject to their whim occupies the slave dynamic in the situation. But it's this idea that the master sits atop the power structure but doesn't have to do anything to maintain his position. So let's just say you have a king and you have serfs. So the king is the king by virtue of being the king and by virtue of being able to tell that guy to hurt you if you don't do what he says. So you do what he says and you grow the food. And then you get really good at growing the food and over generations and you pass on new ideas and new techniques. And eventually you get to a point where the importance of the farmer grows over time because they have the technical knowledge needed to keep things going. Meanwhile, the king's influence drops and drops and drops and drops. The master's influence drops because he doesn't have to do anything to maintain his position. So it becomes, over time, less suited to occupy that position, which is why you have things like peasant revolts, why you have things like communist revolutions, because this idea is that there are people who are telling Kusanagi what she should and shouldn't be doing. Her masters at Section 9, the puppet master himself, but she is the one who has all the skills that they need that they're trying to manipulate her into using for their benefit. And in the end, part of her evolution is realizing that she should not be subjected to those power structures anymore. And that is so she comes into conflict with all of these things, but she integrates. Shut up, John. I just noticed the thing. But she successfully integrates disparate things, the human Kusanagi and the very analytical and logical and inhuman puppet master into a new thing, which I think the movie is suggesting will be the future thing for us. Like she is, the uber human.
Yep. She's definitely something that's more advanced, and she gets to start off again as a baby. And
she starts off again as a baby, i.e., the birth of a new something. And maybe, she's not going to be the only one. Like, this might be what the film is suggesting is the future for humanity as a whole.
Yeah. That's what I took it as. John?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm still just taking.
You're thinking about it. It's a lot. It's a lot. I can't wait for you to watch it.
Again, this movie has so much philosophy tied into it, and it asks questions about the nature of human consciousness and individuality that we still don't have an answer for in 2020. Like, what's the definition of life? Biology can't exactly tell us. Philosophy can't exactly tell us. They can tell us things that it isn't.
Yeah.
But they can't tell us what it is. I don't know. It's just, I love this kind of film that makes you ask these type of questions. And that's why it makes for a good conversation piece, too.
Deep thoughts. Oop, I can't type. I was trying to answer Anna. Masamune Shiro wrote Ghost in the Shell in 89, 90.
Okay.
It was a manga before it was an anime. But yeah, they've adapted 3 series off of it, I think, and with different teams. Each time they've done a different adaptation. So I think it's super fascinating. It's a very interesting work, and like we discussed, very similar to Akira. And I just keep wanting to go watch Akira now, really. Because
So I saw Akira before I saw this film.
Mhm.
I think Akira was the first anime film I ever saw, and
Oh,
it blew my. I mean, I watched some anime shows when I was a kid, but they were like Captain Harlock and Star Blazers and Robotech. You know, they were not. They didn't have the deep themes that a film like Ghost in the Shell or Akira had. You know.
I think the anime that I remember watching when I was little on like the Sci-Fi Channel was a movie called Vampire Hunter D,
Oh, that's actually
yeah, it's a
that's
classic.
decent movie.
which I don't really remember anything about, but it'd be interesting to revisit to see if I remember anything, because I do enjoy those moments when you revisit something that you haven't seen since you were a little kid, and then all of a sudden everything starts to come back. So
Yeah. Speaking of anime and similar animes, people in the chat have mentioned a couple times Neon Genesis Evangelica. Have either of you guys seen that?
I have seen it.
It's
It's been a minute. I got to be honest with you. I did not love the art style in Evangelion. I just, I didn't love the art style. It's very like everything is so stick thin. It seems to me, and it's a choice.
Yeah, it's a choice. It's a '90s anime. Not all of them are winners.
But I don't remember it all that well, but I do remember going like, "What is happening?" More than once.
I still don't think I fully understand everything that happened in that one. Speaking of really crazy mind trippy animes, but it's a very, very fascinating show, John. I highly recommend it. You should check it out.
It's about teenagers that pilot giant robots.
Robots.
Yeah, robots.
Robots. Mm-hmm. Get in the robot, Shinji.
So, I mean,
yeah, definitely check out Akira first, John, is what I was going to say. Go ahead, Steven.
Yeah.
Sorry.
To me, I do want to steer this back to the film we're talking about, but I will say, like, Akira brought anime to the United States in a way that it wasn't here before.
Mm-hmm.
When that film came over and people saw, oh, it's not just kids stuff. It's adult, it's deep, it's scary, it's thought-provoking. Yeah.
Yeah.
I learned a new word today. In my I was doing research for this stream. And so would you describe the world that Ghost in the Shell is set in? Would you describe it as a utopia?
No, it's a dystopia.
Is it though? Because most folks just seem happily going on about their lives, and it's not like Big Brother is oppressing everyone. But it's definitely like got its darkness to it. But I would say it's not exactly a dystopia, which I learned a word for what that is: heterotopia.
A heterotopia.
A heterotopia, which is an advanced society that has both, good and bad parts. Because you can see a lot of what would be great about this, but you can also, like, it doesn't shy away from the terrifying parts of what is suggested in the film either.
Cedric, I have heard of Ninja Scroll. I know my best friend from years back was into it, when we were younger, but I have never seen it myself.
I mean, I liked it well enough, but to me, it's not even close to the same level as something like Ghost in the Shell or Akira.
It's not. I mean, like, it's very. I'm not going to bash it because it's important and it has an important place in like the history of animation and anime, but I don't think it's on the same big brain thought level as.
Although it did give us, like, and I've only seen it in the English, forgive me, that's what I had access to when I saw it, but it did give us a line, "Burn in your golden hell," which is just great.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't know. There's that one scene that I always think about in Ninja Scroll that just scarred me when I saw it as a child. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, Steven.
Been a minute, so maybe I don't, but,
There's a tongue and there's...
Okay, I do know what you're talking about.
Yep.
Yeah, that was the birth of hentai, maybe.
No, I think it existed before that, but let's pretend.
Probably so, but like, let's face it, we've been weird since the beginning. Oh my gosh. Peadar, where have you been, my man? With this
Hey.
anyway.
But it's interesting that you don't call this a dystopia, Stephen, because we don't actually see that much from the general populace.
Sure we do.
We get a little bit, but
I don't know. I'm on Steven's side after he explained it. I was like, he's right. He's right. We don't really see. We see like the government's in control.
Yeah, well, there's just a guy, he's like my wife. My wife and kid. Granted, they're not real, but like he seems just like a normal dude, and the guy who wants to get his trash out and like, can you take my trash for me? Or like in that sequence in the middle of the
film, guy taking his trash out is evidence that things are good.
Okay, but like
he can take his trash out to the curb without getting shot.
But like the fact that people are, we see life in the city, especially during
that happens. And I mean,
I don't know.
People are still. There are people who are still able to go about their daily lives even under sort of fascist governments. It's the people you don't see that you should worry about.
Yeah, that's true. But like it's not making it evident that I don't know. I don't see the evidence of a dystopia.
I agree.
I mean, I definitely see the dark side of futurism, but there's also a hopefulness about it that makes me feel like it's not a dystopia. Like this movie is definitely got some depressing and scary things to think about, but it's got hopefulness to it.
Yeah. Do you want to elaborate on that? Like what part of it was hopeful for you?
Just the end.
Okay.
Where she walks out and she's like, I'm a brand new bab in the world, and where am I? What's next? Where do I get to go? Because she now has the means to explore both the physical world and the electronic world in a way that the Puppet Master and Kusanagi individually could not have done before. So she is the first lungfish to crawl out of the sea, or what have you. Like the whole world is her oyster in a way that it will never be for anybody else.
Yeah, it's like the government that's in control would not be cool with her, carrying on. They'd want to, if they were able to find her, they'd want to take her into custody.
Yeah. I was seeing it as a dystopia because basically the government's in control of everything and has super cyborg soldiers doing its everything at once. So that's kind of what my thinking on it was.
I mean, there's even freaking spider tanks.
There's spider tanks, Stephen.
If that isn't dystopia, I don't know what is.
Oh, good point. I don't know. I could see it either way. I don't think it really matters.
Well, some people are disagreeing with me, and that's all right. Like I'm all for like having that spirited conversation because I actually remain completely unconvinced. I don't know that we are shown that the government wants to retain control, but we're not shown that they're authoritarian.
Well, isn't controlling everything authoritarian?
I mean, but like, okay, now we're going to get into a conversation about the nature of governance.
Even consider something like the Hunger Games, where if you just look at the Capitol, I'm sure that seems like a utopia.
Okay,
there's a lot of people in there, but not so much for the people out in the districts. I'm just saying that based on the little bit that we see of the workings of the city and the fact that life doesn't seem to suck horribly for some of the people that we see does not mean it's not a dystopia.
Okay, fair enough.
Sorry,
I get you. Lack of evidence isn't evidence of lack, but that cuts both ways.
Okay.
So, like, there's definitely a bleakness to it, and there's, it's a cyberpunk film. So of course it's going to have that sort of it's raining and there's neon lights, but there's also deep dark shadows. It's like neo-noir. So like it's going to have that aspect to it. But the point of this film isn't about government control. That's a different movie.
Mm-hmm.
This film is about the nature of consciousness and like whether or not the government would go after Kusanagi and like what rights does she have? That's an interesting conversation to be had, but it's not one this film is even trying to engage with.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter for the context of this film whether it was dystopia or not, was what I was saying.
I have my true purpose has been discovered. Thank you, daughter. But I would be a benevolent dictator. I'm just saying.
Steven's all like, I will treat you just as well as Lord Stark ever did.
Yeah, which means I'll behead you, possibly. Yeah, I get what you're getting at.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah. Okay, well, guys, we're about 10 minutes from the end. Is there anything else you want to make sure gets said about this film? Animation, music, sound design, character design.
I like the character design.
I do too. They're all visually distinct.
Yeah, I thought it was really strong. I don't like none of the outfits or anything like really stood out as out of place for me. They all blended into their environments really nice. It felt like a whole. It just felt really visually. Sorry, it felt really well designed, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, just again, I already said I was blown away by the animation. I mean, it's such for it's obviously a very dark looking film. Just it's not like beautiful in the way in the same way that like a Miyazaki film is with all a whole bunch of bright colors and all that. It's beautiful in a very different way. Just the the detail of the animation and just the way things are portrayed. But just I was really just blown away watching it. Even if I didn't fully comprehend everything, but I'm happy because this talk has actually given me several things to think about. So I'll be watching it a third time, and I'm sure many more in the future. And once again, just talking about how nice it is to see that this film packs so many ideas and so many feelings into what's pretty much an 80-minute runtime, which I think is absolutely incredible. I was paying attention when I was watching it today. I noticed like it's about like 30 something, maybe 35 minutes in when we get to that sequence with the main theme with her going through the city. And that's pretty much, you've gotten through all of the setup of the characters and the story. And then you're flying into what is the second act, which is just going to be sort of nonstop until the end of the movie. And it's just amazing how the film is able to set so much up so that you're prepared for that second act, and then just so much happens, and it's so interesting and so thought-provoking. So yeah, I don't rarely these days go into a movie and come out and immediately say, yeah, that's a classic, but it's easy for this one because it is.
Yeah. Cedric has mentioned it a couple of times about Kusanagi coming off the roof near the beginning of the film. The shot where she's jumping, and like her thermoptic camouflage is kicking in, and she smiling and waves her hand across her face. The way she blends into the background, it's so good. It's so good. And then there's also I guess he's talking about the scene where she jumps out of the helicopter and has her superhero landing moment. That's pretty badass.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. When she jumps on top of the spider tank.
Mm-hmm.
And funks down and has her like really cool landing. That was really cool too. She's badass for sure.
I will say one of the things that I really like about this film is that it does not hold your hand at any point.
No.
Whatever is happening on screen is what's happening, and the visual cues are there for you to figure out what's happening. But if you're not paying attention, you're going to miss so much.
Oh yeah, you cannot draw and watch this one. You gotta pay attention for sure. Sorry if that came out yawned.
No, we're pretty boring, John and I. So
No, I'm just hungry and I need pizza. Sorry.
Okay. Hey, pizza sounds pretty good. Actually.
I ordered some before the stream, so it'll be here any minute.
Nice.
But yeah, that's the thing. Is on my first viewing, I immediately realized, okay, I really got to pay attention to every bit of the dialogue, and I still only probably got sort of the general gist of some things, which is why I made sure to pay really close attention again on the second viewing, because it's definitely not one that you just turn on in the background and do something else. You've got to be really tuned into it.
It definitely demands your attention.
For sure.
Anybody else? Anybody else have anything else to say? Chat. Feel free to chime in.
Pizza delivered by Domino's Spider Tank.
Lady Leaf says pizza.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't email it to y'all. Doesn't really work like that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I actually had some earlier today.
What if in the future you can have a cyber implant so you can eat pizza, but I can taste it?
That'd be pretty cool.
No, I'm not really keen on sharing with you, Stephen.
Yeah, I would get tired of orange juice real quick.
Yeah.
But like, that's what this movie's kind of suggesting. Like, why wouldn't that be possible?
I just want a TV where you can smell what everybody's cooking on it. I want smell-o-vision.
Smell-o-vision?
Where I want to be closer to that than I feel like we are. I don't think that's really on any of the TV manufacturers' top priority lists, and it should be, just for me, just so I can smell what the chefs
I think there would be a lot of people lining up.
Oh, yeah.
So you may not know this, but there was a thing that they did called Smell-o-vision, and it was a TV special where you had to go. I can't even remember what it had at the convenience store or McDonald's or something, but you would get a card that had all these different scratch and sniff things on it, and then you watch the TV special and it would tell you when to scratch and sniff things, and it was Smell-o-vision. I'm not kidding. It was a real thing that happened probably in like the 80s. You know what? I have to Google this now because I promise you it was a real thing.
All right, folks, never say that we don't deliver the chaos in our streams.
Especially when I'm here, shit.
Oh wow. Apparently attempts at Smell-o-vision go all the way back to the 60s. But
Of course they do.
yeah, well, it was the 60s. People were high.
What's changed?
The year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's see. I wish I could. Yes, I'm with you. Like, wouldn't it be nice for people with a peanut allergy to have some peanut butter flavor?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be nice to get all the flavor of ice cream and none of the calories?
That's really what I'm here
Like,
for.
your job could be food eater, though. Like, you could have a job where all I do is I broadcast my taste buds. Like, see, I'm literally writing my own science fiction story in my head now.
Get a piece of paper.
The implications of this are incredible, and Ghost in the Shell was the movie that first introduced these very thoughts to me. Seriously, like I didn't really have a lot of deep transhumanist thoughts before this film, and after it, because I didn't see Blade Runner before I saw this film or anything else like that, you know. So this was I guess I read the short story that Westworld is based on, but like, given that my preference is for an audiovisual medium over a sort of like text medium, this was the one that really just got me there and made me fall in love with the questions that it poses.
Yeah. It's I'll be thinking about this for the next couple days, I can tell you that much. I'm kind of quiet just because I got big brain thoughts going on.
Yep, gonna lose some sleep over this, huh?
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, I'll just in closing say that this was more than worth all the anticipation that I'd built up over the years, because I've wanted to see this for a really long time. And I mean, it would be hard to match the expectations I had. It probably surpassed them. It's a great film, and if there's anybody watching this who hasn't seen it, fix that immediately.
It's free on YouTube right now, even though it
Yeah.
has the wrong translation. Thanks, John.
I mean, it's good enough. It's good enough. Look,
It's a version of the film that you can watch for free right now.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Which side thought, like, YouTube is so weird about its nudity and stuff, but like, there's anime boobs all over this thing, and it's free on YouTube, and nobody seems to care.
Yeah. I think somebody pointed that out in chat earlier, or maybe in your Slack. Why is that free on YouTube? Like, yeah, it raises some questions. Even though they're not sexualized anime titties, as we talked about, they're still anime titties.
Well, I mean, YouTube does offer films for purchase, regardless of the R-rated content and stuff like that. I just think that for some reason this film they're offering for free, so it's not like it's just a randomly uploaded video. It comes from the studio, and so I think that probably different rules apply there. Otherwise, there's a lot of movies that they wouldn't be able to sell on YouTube. So,
yeah.
Yep. Okay, well, is there anything else needs to be said? I think I've said my piece. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. This was fantastic as always. John, there's a reason we have you as co-host. Sanri, there's a reason I always, have you back anytime I can, even if it takes a little bit of begging. Although didn't this time. So yeah, I had a blast though. This film is just one of those that I think is worth mining everybody's thoughts, and the fact that we didn't agree on it all, and maybe shared some ideas that we didn't have before. I love that. I love it. So John,
can I just say though that what's really amazing about our discussion of this film was that at no point did we even attempt to like break down the plot of the film, and that's what's sort of beautiful about it, because it would be difficult to do that, and it's so much easier just to kind of dive into the heady concepts that the film talks about.
Yeah, because the plot's not really what you watch it for.
Yeah, it's the concepts for this one for sure.
All right. Yeah, totally. So John, what you got coming up this week?
Okay. Yep. So next Saturday, I'm going to be very sad doing a stream about the cancellation of the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance. And I'll be doing that with Cliff Broadway from theonering.net. So definitely tune in to watch that. We're going to have fun, even though it's sad news. But yeah. And then the week after that, I'll be doing my Master and Commander panel stream. So
yeah, I've heard the guest list for that panel, and it's pretty impressive.
Fun.
Yeah. Sanri, what do you got coming up?
Oh, nothing. I have commission work I'm working on, so.
Also, go watch Archer.
Yeah, if you're not watching Archer season 11 and you have Hulu or you have Live FFX or FXX, it is rather. Please watch Archer. It's on Wednesday nights or Thursdays if you watch on Hulu, because I would really like it to get renewed so I can keep working. That'd be awesome.
Sanri, can I just say, like, I love Archer anyway, but watching those episodes, I was like geeking out like 100 times as much, because it just, it wasn't, it was enough before just when it was such a great show, but now watching it and seeing, your art and stuff like that, it was like, yeah, that's so cool.
It's really surreal for me. It kind of like breaks my brain, because I'm like, man, this shot took me, like 20 hours, or this, like the pirate ship that I built for episode 2 took me a good 30, 40 hours just to build that pirate ship. So like all these things, it's like hours of my life that are represented on screen. That's literally just in the background. I mean, sometimes it's the whole shot, but you get it. You get what I'm saying. And yeah.
So
It's
go support Archer.
if you can.
Sanri drew stuff on that show.
Yeah, I did a lot of backgrounds for it, so that's really fun.
Yeah,
And there's lots of Easter eggs that I will tell you guys one day.
I think I know a couple.
Probably. You guys saw some of the behind the scenes stuff.
I did.
Wait until this week, episode 4. It's my robot factory, and I can say that because they've announced the name of the episode.
Yeah, I saw that Robot Factory.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait.
The girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited.
And next week we'll be talking about something completely different than what we talked about this week. We'll be talking about a simple hedge knight and his squire, who is a little more than he appears to be. We'll be covering the Sworn Sword. I always nearly say the Sworn Sword every time. I don't know why. It's a thing. But it's the second tale of Dunk and Egg, and I love it. So join us next week for that breakdown. Nessie will be back. So look, as always, my internet sister will get to join us for that one. Unfortunately, she's working this week. That's why she's not here. And going forward after that, I don't know. We've got a couple different things coming up. We'll talk about those later. But if there's nothing else, y'all, I guess it's time to say goodbye. So once again, to everyone in the chat, thanks for coming. John, Sanri, thank you as always. You guys were both fantastic. And you know what it is, everyone. Until next time, peace and be excellent to each other.